Hello and good evening to Civilization Players League Q&A show. I'm here with Kanak and Von Holio to bring you some answers to your questions about Civilization 6 gaming and gameplay and whatever else questions you have, maybe about the mods or something. So let's get right into it with Kanak, who will tell us about CPL and what it is.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have all of Michael's viewers here. And thank you, Michael, very much for putting this on and hosting this Q&A for all of us Civ players, old and new members alike. Civ Players has been around since 2002. We've been running leagues for the Civilization players since Civ 3 Play the World came out, and we continue to provide a service here for everyone. This is a great opportunity for us to serve the new players who may not know everything about the game, and hopefully everyone will take advantage of this.
I really hope they will do. I'm anxious to see more competition going on in our servers, including the CVFR server that actually made 18 years. It's illegal now, right? Since yesterday. I would suggest players to go into the CPL QA show channel that is available in the Discuss Civ 6. And there you can plus up and wait for your turn to make a question or put up a question for the moderators. In the meantime, we can go through the news that we have in our little community over here. So we made the change that actually we wanted to announce that the quitters do not go dead last in game reports. It seems that players, when they reported the game, actually thought the quitters will go under the players that already lost the game or quit the game before them. So we have to tell them that they need to put them as the last player standing or alive, let's say, not the last in the list. We also have the stop rule. There will be some changes, well, not some changes, just an information about it. The stop rule does go both ways. So if you tell someone to stop harassing, insulting you, you must also stop harassing and insulting them. So, you don't start a fire by bringing a lighter. So please don't. Also, news cycle about stream sniping. I'm not sure exactly why, but players feel the need to watch other people's streams that are in game with them. So please do not do that. It is an offense in our community, and it's borderline. Well, it's cheating, outright cheating. So we know it will give you an advantage, but it is not a good advantage or some advantage that you would want to have. You will be punished severely for doing this. Please don't. Additionally, we had some players that complained about players that were voted irrelevant but did not leave the game. So we decided to tell all the players that if they actually went through an irrelevancy vote, they must leave that game on the same turn that the vote has finished or at the end of the turn. Please do not hang around in the game. You are already not relevant, so as voted. And since you asked for irrelevancy, we assume that you want to be out of the game as soon as possible. Another 2 vetoes have been added to the game rules. Science veto for any player that has launched the Earth satellite will now have a veto. And any player with tourism per turn over 500 will have a veto also. I think that sums up the last 2 weeks of news cycle. Von, can you explain us a bit about the mods?
Oh, sure thing, Michael. We have 3 mods that we use in CPL. Better Balanced Start Game mod that actually tries to balance out the starts, the spawn points of all the players in the game. Does a pretty good job. We've been using that for well over a year. The biggest mod that we use is Better Balance Game. That balances everything in the game towards the multiplayer from civs to religion, religious beliefs. Some wonders and natural wonders were changed. That's thanks to that was pretty much a big community project. CodeNaw, Vice Head Admin here, took the lead on that and did most of it, along with S1AL.
I think we need to talk about the need of the mod. We had some issues being competitive when the vanilla game came out, and we tried to balance them out, or let's say cut the corners with the BBG mod. So let's say we have an overpowered civ like Scythia that will give you 2 horses when you only build 1, or 2 Saka horse archers. The BBG slows it down and only gives it 1 horse. So those kind of changes, nerfs and buffs, will go around in all other aspects of the game, including the pantheons, right?
Yep. We have our first question in Twitch.
Yes, we do. I think I can start this discussion off. So, Bis asked, "What's the current situation with Glico discussion? Is the community happy with?" So, I would have to say at first, Glico 2 is a much better system than Elo. However, whenever you launch a ranking system at first, the initial week isn't going to have a lot of data. So there was some large swings, but that's normal. I think right now we've settled down to the point where especially in the FFA leaderboard, it's pretty mature. People's ratings deviation values are getting low, meaning the system is very sure of their skill level, and it's looking quite accurate right now. You have anything to add, Code?
CodeNaw isn't here, but it's an honest mistake. I feel like CodeNaw sometimes.
Okay, yeah, that's true. You two have any comments on the Glico system you had for 3 weeks?
I haven't been around since the development of it. I just see that we do have some big changes in the leaderboard since it was implemented, but it's still early. As I understand it, it takes time for the system to actually get around to your actual level. So you need to make a lot of games, or put in a lot of games, to actually have a relevant idea of your status, let's say.
Yeah, just browsing through the leaderboard, the players that I know seem to be in the positions that they should be based on their, at least in games that I've seen them play. There's some players that still only have 1 or 2 games logged, so it'll take some time to filter them to where they need to be.
Yeah, and if a player was with 2-3 games, got good results and moved up, sure, that'll happen. But as soon as their RD values are still quite high, like take for instance Andrew Jar Jar, 2 games, won them, got an 1895 score out of it, but his RD's 100. So if he can't maintain that skill level, he'll go down quite fast when he loses a game. A lot of people though are approaching RDs in the range of 50 to 60, which is low. So the system's quite sure of there's.
Now RD is ratings deviation, if I'm correct.
Yes, ratings deviation. So basically, as you play games and win lose, the system over a time period measures how you're doing, and it's all based on what you're reporting in games. So if you lose to 1,600 players but beat 1,550 players consistently, then your skill is going to end up in the high 1,500s, and your RD will go down. When your RD goes down, when you do win and lose, you don't win and lose a lot. When you have a high RD, the system allows you to jump up and down further, to put that adjustment into your score if needed.
So let's see. I see a 48. There's a 46 RD. That seems to be about the lowest anyone is. Oh, there's a 40. So let's see. Jessica is 40th on the ladder with an RD of 40. And she has played 27 games. So the system is starting to, narrow her down to where she likely belongs on the ladder.
Yeah, I think that's basically what that's saying. The more games you play, the more accurate your RD is going to be, and the more accurate your position on the ladder is going to be. People with low amounts of games, it doesn't really.
Yeah, the players I see that have only played 1 or 2 games all have RDs still around 150. What is the starting RD, Canuck?
It's 200.
200, okay.
I know there were some suggestions about making the first few games with bigger RD, just so the system will rank them higher at the beginning. I'm not sure exactly how that will go, but...
Well, if you have a really large starting RD, say 250, you're like, if you remember the first week, there's a bunch of big swings, people winning 300 points, losing 300 points. That's what you get when you have high RD levels. So it's a kind of a balance. If you let players have high RDs to start with, they can either go either way. Win your first 3 games and move up really quick, or lose them and plummet to 14. It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah, we also have a lot of randomized games here. It's very rare to see a game that is played on a certain seed map or a certain known map. So I'm thinking the randomization of the game is still a factor everywhere. So you always, when you start the game, is you have to be prepared to have an extremely good spawn or an extremely bad spawn. That is the pleasure of playing Civilization 6, to be adaptable to any situation. Well, of course, playable situations, because you always have the remap options.
Game factors are going to affect any single game, but over, weeks and months, those game factors even out really in terms of the way Glico records them. And really, the one factor that's going to affect your long-term skill is your game skill. I mean, you can say I have a crappy start this game and I lost, but the next game you have an OP start and you win. All those sort of things even out statistically over the long run.
I tend to agree, and I think that was the main reason we switched to Glyco 2 instead of the normal one, the ELO system.
Yeah, ELO is what we call a zero-sum system. So basically, if you add up everyone's pluses or minuses in terms of the score they gain, it equals 0 in any single game. So it doesn't take into consideration players' games history when the way Glico 2 does. So it was very flat in terms of the way it dealt with players' game history. So Glico is a much better system. In the long run, we'll have a much better bell curve of player skill. Assuming everyone plays regularly, the bell curve of the leaderboard should be very accurate. I ran this in the Civ 4 days. One of the complaints was it was too accurate and players have a hard time moving out of their slot. But on the other hand, your skill is what it is. If you want to get better and move up, you actually have to get better.
Well, this is an interesting question for the Civilopedia. Tordred is asking us, how much production does Broadway cost on marathon speed? I think he he really wants to spend those 90 tons on marathon speed to build Broadway. the stream, Pointiest had asked us if we were ever thinking about making modded wonders or leaders, or maybe some UI fixes. I know we had Godly J that was doing some form of mod to improve his UI, especially with pillage, right? The pillage shortcut. I'm not sure if he actually got around to getting that out. I know it was in development. Have we thought about this, the wonders or the leaders?
Adding wonders, I think the goal of BBG was to balance Firaxis's game and not add too much to it. The only thing I think that was added was one Pantheon, and that was really just an entire rework of the God of War Pantheon, I think. They changed it to God of War and Plunder, which gives you +1 Great Merchant, Great General, and Great Admiral points.
That's actually a great Pantheon, by the way, especially with England, right?
Yeah, we generally stay away from making UI mods official here of any kind, but there's nothing illegal about them. The players just have to want them, and of course, being multiplayer, everyone has to want them in the game. Otherwise, I mean, UI mods can work for individual players. It's a little glitchy though. So, if a UI mod was to gain I guess a mass of players that wanted to play it, then that would happen. But really, UI mods haven't taken off here too much.
Godly J did actually respond to us, and he said that he fixed it and it's stable. His hotkeys mod. I'm not exactly sure of the details of the hotkeys mod, but I really like the idea of having a pillage button. Just saying. Also, Warbringer is telling us that River Goddess was tuned before they made it 2 housing and 2 amenities, but wasn't it too much faith on the river before it was changed to 2 housing and 2 amenities, Warbringer? I know it was one of the first picks in the Pantheons for like 2 weeks until they actually changed it. Don't you think it was a little bit too much? Also, until he answers, I would like to invite any player that wants to ask a question to come. Just tell us, put a plus in the CPL Q&A show channel, and come right next to us in the caster studio and ask the questions by voice. I think it's better to have a conversation than actually talk. But we have another question. The question is about the new BBS. 2/2s are no more guaranteed, potentially compensated by luxuries. What's your feeling about this? Personally, I am not really enjoyed by that change, and I just wonder if that's only me. Well, honestly, we have noticed that the BBS does not work exactly as intended. We are trying to find a workaround. I know that Wazabaza, who was the original creator of the BBS, and some CVFR members are working on it. When we will have a new version of it, I'm sure we will put it in the updates channels and probably in the news, and everyone will get it as soon as they restart Steam. In the meantime, I do know that most of the time, like 85% of the time, 90% of the time, the mod still works. It's those 10% of the time that it doesn't work. We had those problems, I believe, when there was too much desert and tundra, and we had to balance that out somehow.
Yeah, so basically, community member 77 has been working on a scripted version of BBS.
Yes.
And rather than add resources to the spawn location to get you to a certain level of production, his version is balancing it in a way that each spawn is within a certain percentage of each other in terms of production and food. So if you have, let's say, one player that has, let's just make it 10 to make it easy, a 10 production in their first ring around their spawn, everyone in the game would have, let's call it 30%. It's got to be within 30%. So everyone would have a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 13 in their first round. And then he goes and does that for, I think, a few rings out to keep everything in line so you don't. Hopefully it fixes the. There's been a problem with spawning on floodplains. BBS couldn't account for that in some manner. I'm definitely not the person to ask this question or to be asked this question. I have no technical knowledge of the mods. I just I try to test them out and see how they feel to your average player, which I would call myself an average player.
Well,
but basically, his version
will want to join us. But I think he's on mobile right now. When maybe next week.
Yeah, maybe next week we can have Codena in here and answer these more technical questions.
Yeah, right now I don't feel an extreme need that something must change. I just noticed that we do have a lot of bans right now, but if we start nerfing those exact civilizations that we have banned right now, it will just go into other civilizations that will be banned. And I guess it's more of a preference than actually something that they should do, especially about, let's say, America or Khmer or Inca or civilizations like that can be OP in the hands of someone that is extremely good playing them, but they can also be nerfed by their spawn. So it's always random in this game. Especially America, with the +5 bonus at the beginning, you can spawn on a small continent and no one is on your own continent, so you have nothing to actually do until late game, when you will have those amazing planes and the how do you say, the theaters, right? The buildings. Can someone scroll through the novice chat and maybe see their questions over there? I know about the questions that have been brought to my attention, and most of them are about, let's say, good starting wonders for going culture victory, or how many cities you should have until the medieval era, or when you switch between the ancient and classical era. And I think those are good questions. Another question would be if you want to go golden age all the time. You guys want to go over those questions?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot today right now.
Well, it is still a... Oh, sure, Wordbringer. Can we drag Wordbringer up? You don't need to be qualified, you just need to ask questions. That's the whole point of this show. The more questions you ask, the more we can answer, and the better we can all be. Especially everyone who is involved in this, right?
Sure, grabbing Warbringer.
Hello there, Wordbringer.
Good evening, fellas.
So you said you have some questions for us?
Not specific questions, but for example, what do you guys think about the latest buffs to Zulu? I mean, we were talking about banning civs, and those are two civs that are almost always banned now.
I heard Zulu. I missed the second one.
Zulu and Scotland.
Scotland, okay. Basically, those were unnerfs, I believe. they had been changed. I think with pretty close to the original version of BBG, and throughout it they've been tweaked, and then Firaxis made some changes, and those two civs weren't being played at all. So the BBG Brain Trust decided to just get them back to their original states, which were pretty strong. And at this point, I think they're extremely strong again. But you kind of need that in a game. You're never gonna have perfect balance. There's always gonna be, a meta strategy that takes over.
Well, I do agree with the Scotland ban in teamers, but I do not think Scotland should be banned in FFAs, let's say, just as it is right now. Because in the teamers games, it's very easy to go into your extra amenities extremely fast because of the big probability that your teammates will be on more than 2 continents, let's say. So you will have like what, almost 12 amenities. So that's a lot of amenities. Let's say 8, not 12. But in FFA, it's not that common that you spawn on a continent split or maybe a 3-way continent split. So the chance of you getting so many amenities and getting that extra bonus is not that much. But it does give Scotland a very good chance to make it, let's say, go head to head with a civilization like Japan or some other seeming civilization like that.
Yeah, a real concern for Scotland, along with all their simming buffs, is that their UU, the Highlander, can be really strong, as G has pointed out on the stream. That can I don't know the exact numbers, but I know their strength can get over 100, and it's a pretty early unit, I would say, compared to a normal unit that would have that much strength, like a tank.
That unit has the scout upgrade tree?
That is the scout upgrade tree, yes.
So it has the plus 20 on the 3rd upgrade, okay. Yeah, I guess that can make problems. But so does the Warakak, right? With the 2 shots and the extra movement that you get. Especially the range. So.
Yes, but the Warakak is way too early. You don't have mercenaries at the point when you get the Warakak. While when you hit the Highlanders, you should be having mercenaries, and the promotions are then much. While Warakak is not really viable unless your team is saving up gold for you. But in FFA, it's practically impossible to pull off.
Yeah, and going back to Zulu, Zulu wasn't preferred because of the high cost of upgrading its units or actually maintaining them. So it was always a sacrifice, but I know now it's much easier to keep up with the cost, especially with the government plaza building, the Warlord's Throne. And I noticed that their knights are totally that knight cores are totally destroying any other units at their age. So maybe the mod team will take a look into it, because I don't think it's normal, especially after seeing that nobody can withstand unless they go maybe towards muskets or something like that with general. I'm not sure if you have something to add about that.
I only faced Zulu one time, but Zulu was behind me, and I also had Defender, so it was pretty easy defending, but still fighting field cannons against knights and having to defend actively and first move, not much fun.
Yeah, it's a good example of the balance in the Better Balance game mod, on how it's hard, because you change some aspects and it indirectly buffs or nerfs other parts of the game. And a big one is, especially for Zulu, is the Sacred Path change. Zulu can grab the Sacred Path Pantheon, and they're almost always in jungle or woods, so they'll have good adjacencies for holy sites, and they can build up faith, and then they can flat buy their core, and yeah, huge core armies. But then again, you do the same thing with Mongolia. Mongolia, you can save up your faith with Sacred Path.
Or
And-
Scythia, for that matter.
And yeah, sure. Scythia has it inherently.
Yeah.
But yeah, you save up your faith and put down that Grand Master's Chapel in your government plaza, and Mongols buy their Keshig. And here you are, turn 45-ish, 40, with 1,000 military score worth of Keshigs. So, yeah, any of the aggressive civs with strong, mid game units really benefits from that pantheon if they can grab it.
So I'm assuming you guys also think that Faith Buy is a little bit strong.
Faith in general is pretty strong. I feel really bad when I don't draw quote unquote faith-based civ for the Monumentality Golden Age the first time through. I would prefer to use that dedication every time, and it just feels dirty when I don't.
Yeah, I feel the same here, and I also remember the times when faith-based civs were nothing. If you remember, like maybe a year ago, before we had, I think we only had Rise and Fall, right? Before Gathering Storm and everything, and the updates to our mods, and before BBG came out, we had maybe Khmer as a good civ, but not even that was very few players were actually playing it. And everyone else was going extremely high science or high culture. Those were the only two options. And then we started playing around with the mod and changing the civs, the civ bonuses, the pantheon bonuses, and the possibility to go into faith was a lot better. So now you have the all three sides of the coin in the golden ages available to you at all times if you want to go that route. It used to be that you had only two. So I think that is a plus in our overall game experience. Also, yes,
I absolutely agree.
As Godly J was saying, Goddess of Harvest before nerf was amazing, right?
Yeah, we kind of needed something to fill that void. I know a lot of people love Goddess of the Harvest, but wow, it was strong. And the Sacred Path change is a good change, I think.
I agree, especially with Brazil. Those +9, +10 holy sites are amazing every time. You just have to be careful not to get killed until you actually get your civilization, your religion,
Yeah, and I mean, Sacred Path wasn't even a huge change. All they added was the adjacency to woods, right? Yeah. So it always had the rainforest, but they just added woods, and that just opens it up to a lot more civs, makes it more versatile. But then you have to balance that because, generally harvesting woods and rainforest is the way to go.
Yeah.
With Sacred Path, you have to really think about that.
Ghost.
But I think the boost to mercantilism, I mean the ability to build lumber mills on rainforest has really boosted that playstyle as well.
Yes, but there are still players that prefer to chop everything and think about it after, because you still get those massive boosts to either making units or getting the buildings done or everything. So the game style of warmongering is still available to everyone, even though there have been implemented a lot of solutions to defend against, let's say, a night rush or not a night rush, sorry, a sword rush or a horse rush. Those were extremely viable options back in the day, let's say a year ago. They're still available, not as common right now to see. You need to have the right spawn and the right civ to go against to actually make it work. Ghost was saying something about the phase sieves. Let's see. So generally speaking, phase sieves have a very substantial boost to civil units production buying, allowing them to expand massively once the first golden age is reached. How can non-phase sieves keep up with these phase sieves when they cannot buy units with faith, thus having to hard produce settlers and whatnot? I'm not considering starting positions here, as that plays a really big part in the whole story as well. So, well, for starters, there are two things that you have to take into account. Making the holy sites and getting that religion will actually take a lot of the time that you would put into making an extra settler or a builder or a wonder. So it's a pros and cons thing and the judgment call. If you are, let's say, safe enough, you can go for it. You can spend those resources and get the religion. After you get the religion, or you don't get the religion, you still have the options, right? Getting enough faith to buy the settlers or the builders will still take time. So that's one thing. And if you don't go holy sites, you can always get the ancestral hall, and you get the half production cost for settlers and the extra builder whenever you settle a city. So that will actually make up, especially when you put the half production cost for settler card on. So that is like a 3-turn settler instead of a 5 or 6-turn settler, or maybe 2-turn settlers. If you want to use, let's say, Magnus with the first promotion, that was actually a tactic back before Gathering Storm. Almost everyone was implementing Magnus as their first, and some still are. I know Middle Student is a player that still is going that route. But both ways are available if you want to go that route. It's just timing. That's basically it. And your preference, I think. I don't think they're massively overpowered, the faith-based civs, but I do think they have a small advantage. Do you have anything to add, Bonholio, Warbringer?
I absolutely agree. The advantage that Faith Civs have right now is quite big, or maybe not that big, but they do have an advantage in the first golden age, definitely, when it comes. But I think that advantage kind of trails off. Most players will actually go in the second golden age something else, for example, pen, brush, and voice, just to get the extra culture and gold. Especially as a Faith Civ, gold is a big problem. So getting second monumentality is not always the right choice, depending on how much land you have. Also, when I play a Faith Civ, I personally always use my faith on builders, because you can get 50% extra production towards settlers anyway, while only 30% extra production towards builders with the cards. So I think chopping settlers is much smarter than chopping builders. And that kind of makes that advantage not so great in the beginning, although obviously as long as you free up your production, you're always getting an.
Yeah, I like to buy the cheap settlers, especially in my outer cities, to save movement. And generally, those outer cities are only, 2-pop anyway, so it's not a big loss. It's easy to get back to 2-pop in new cities. But I agree, chopping is the big part. The free builders or the faith bought builders. If you're threatened, you can chop units instead of settlers. So they just have options, The balance comes with free inquiry. You get a warlike civ. Obviously, they need the gold to support their armies, so they're going to have their commercials down awfully fast. So you're going to see the free inquiry players, jump ahead on the tech tree science-wise and get stronger units faster. And that's where monumentality can lag behind a little bit if they're really threatened. But then again, like I said, they can chop units and just get to a classical unit and kind of fortify and just hunker down. And then really they only need to survive till they can get to crossbows, because crossbows can pretty much handle cleaning up anything that is coming at you if you have enough of them. Now against the strongest players, you're probably going to be in a lot of trouble. But
one thing that you
really
mentioned
buffs
was
the naval civs. Go ahead.
one thing that you mentioned was population, and that's another thing that you have to take into account. Unless you're using Magnus, you're always expanding that population cut in your cities, and going holy sites will take that one district slot you have in your city. So that's one less science district or one less commercial or one less harbor or government plaza. So there's a lot more thinking that should be going on in your planning of districts and your population expectancy. So you have to take care of how much food you have in the city, or get a religion based on food. That's one of the reasons I like Feed the World in almost all situations, just because I can get faster to, let's say, 10 pop city or 7 pop city. So I can put down an extra district. And that's one of the reasons I do like Audience Chamber over Ancestral Hall. But others consider, and I guess it's a valid point, to go Ancestral Hall, Magnus second promotion, and just chop the settlers very fast and expand everywhere, which again is a valid solution, and I think it's almost the same, as powerful as the buying of settlers, just because the settler cost goes up extremely fast. It's like 90, 115, 140, then 190, then it goes over 200 very fast. So you get to buy maybe 5 until you have to wait at least 6 or 7 turns until you can buy a new one, right?
Yeah, I mean, depends on your civ, but for example, if you play Khmer, most of your holy sites are going to be +3. It's kind of hard to get higher adjacency holy sites as Khmer, because usually you want to take River Goddess, and then you get the +2 free adjacency from a river, but getting the +3, but still, you're still limiting your holy sites. So it's not like Russia, where you get free +6 holy sites with every single Tundra holy site that you plant or something like that.
Yeah,
So
or Brazil.
your faith gain, yeah, exactly. So your faith gain kind of starts lagging at some point, and you really have to make the decision: do I actually want to use this faith on a settler, which I have saved for 3 turns, or do I want to use it on 3 builders, or do I need that great person who is helping me with my win condition?
Yeah, exactly. That's always a choice to make, and it's sometimes a hard one. I've been put in situations in which, let's say, I went Poland, I got the reliquaries, but I couldn't get my golden age, and I had 450 faith set up, but couldn't do anything about it. So I just bought a general. That's another thing that you can do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even if you play a faith civ, don't underestimate your generals. For example, Khmer with a classical general is amazing, because then your dom rays have 3 movements. Oh my. Russia is also pretty amazing if you can general bug your horses into Cossacks. I mean, Cossacks with 1 extra movement and +5. That's even more OP.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. There's another question about the audience chamber, and Von, can you put your 2 cents on this? Devries is asking, why does audience chamber give 2 government points, I believe, when it's the most consistent government building used, I think?
Well, that's why. That's why it's the most consistent government building used. It wasn't used at all that I can recall before the buff to it. It's been so long, I don't even know what the base audience chamber does anymore.
No food. No.
Yeah, is it just no food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it also used to give only 1 governor before.
Yeah, it was definitely only 1 governor title. But yeah, differs. That's why it is the most consistently used, is that it gives you the extra governor title, and gives you food and housing in cities with an established governor. So that's just like Michael was saying, to get your population higher, to get that extra district. It's just necessary. I still do like Ancestral Hall for the reasons Michael stated. If you're going really wide, those free builders, especially with when you have feudalism and serfdom card for the extra charges as serfdom.
And pyramids. That oh my god.
Yeah, you get pyramids, the feudalism card, and
the governor.
the governor.
Yeah.
And your China. Yeah.
That's the dream, man. That's the dream. One builder makes all. Yeah, so
you can spend that early faith on your settlers and then get the really strong builders once the settlers are too expensive.
Oh yeah, now that you mentioned the extra builder charges, we were talking earlier a couple of days ago with someone about Spain. Actually going China and building pyramids is certainly the best way to go for space victory, because you get all those builder charges, and with Royal Society you get, I think it was 3% of the project that you're doing. So if you have normal feudalism builders, so 5 charges, that would be 5 times 3, 15%. While on the other hand, if you have China, then and pyramids, then that is 21%.
Just for one
Pretty
build. I
big.
think you can only do that once per turn, though. I think
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing, though. A difference of 15% compared to 21% per turn is actually quite big.
And I guess it's the difference between taking it 6 turns or 5 turns, right? If yeah, to make that to finish that
6%,
project.
Yeah, 6% production per turn. So 4 turns would already be a quarter of the.
Oh, actually, it's 7 turns and 5 turns.
Yeah, exactly.
I would also like to take this moment, since we only have like 10 minutes left to go, to tell everyone that it would be extremely great and appreciated if you have questions, let's say, backed up with maybe a screenshot or a saved video file that you have and you upload it to me before, or you just put it here, share it on the screen. I can put it in the stream and we can talk on situations that you had in the past in the games and you wanted to know how to improve on them. Maybe, let's say, a district placement or a city placement, or what you could have done better in a warlike move situation. Those are always valid questions, and I think it will help us all go through them. Another thing that I wanted to point out, but there's not much we can do about it, is the first move, last move tactic. So I've seen a lot of players complaining in the FFAs about it. Unless you make a line of units and you don't let your enemy shoot your units or attack your units with 3 or 4 more of their units, there's not much we can do about it. Just use chokes, plan your defensive accordingly if you can. If not, you have to pray that you will get that extra bonus on your unit and that extra promotion. I think when 5G, the new technology that will probably be implemented in the next 2 or 3 years, will come out, we'll have extremely low latency. So the difference between, let's say, the computers we have, the lag we have now, will be gone. Not sure exactly how fast everyone will get it, but I'm sure a lot of things will change with that type of technology. It's not even close to what we have right now as in terms of latency.
Well, when it comes to the subject of first moves, I can't speak much because I play on a laptop. I almost never have first moves. But I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that the hardware plays a major difference compared to the actual.
It does and it doesn't. So it's not about how fast you make the turn, because the computer that is hosting the game will actually do the calculations and the math for every player. It's more about how fast the other player will get and receive all the information from the host computer and others. It's like a massive web that is synchronizing between all of the players.
I see. Okay.
So that is what is usually dragging it down. But you can actually point us out how do you defend yourself against first move and last moves.
Oof, stacking as many combat bonuses as possible. Sending spies to your enemy is a big play. Defender of the Faith or Crusade can also make your game literally. And also, most importantly, using the correct units. I mean, I've seen people getting invaded by boats and then trying to spam boats to counter them. That's not always a winning play. Usually, actually, that's the losing play because your enemy already has more boats. Getting some bombards, on the other hand, that can help you defend against ships very well. Also, for example, if your enemy is rushing you with swords, well, go archers or crossbows. If you're getting rushed by cavalry, pike and shot is also a very good way to defend. So yeah, basically it's important, in my opinion, to use the correct unit and then also to stack up as many combat bonuses.
Yeah, especially the Worlds of Religion card. Now that you mention it, it's one of the bonuses that not many people use.
Absolutely, man. It's my favorite card in the game.
Yeah. With Spain and everything, you get that +4. That's amazing. Conquista.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just a little announcement about the novice player games. We do have two players two moderators that want to host this type of games, and one is Ghost and one is Ati Gold. They want to do it on Saturdays at 1900 CET or CEST. I think it's the same, right? I'm not sure exactly how that translates over the board, but I'm sure you guys can find it out in the Novice channel schedule. You can find that. And the other one is Zati Gold that will host every Wednesday at 4 p.m. PDT, or that translates into 7 p.m. EDT or 12 a.m. GMT. I think both of these games merit attention, and it's a good way to start off. I know there have been a lot of concerns, especially coming from the new players, that the more veteran, more experienced players, let's call them like that, will eat them up in FFAs. So this is one of the choices you have to go and not be eaten up by a veteran. They are not allowed in your games unless you want to, let's say, get coached by one or something like that. You can always use your stream or private message one of the coaches. That's another thing we can offer the community, and I think it's another good idea to always ask questions. Always ask questions. That's how we grow. That's how we have all grown. From our experience, from our games, but especially asking questions about how do you get faster, how do you get more science, how do you get more districts, how do you judge if you want to go religion or if you want to go encampment in the beginning. Those are all valid questions that merit answers, and if you want to try them out and hit your head in the wall for as many games as you need to actually learn it, that's fine. But I'm sure you'll find out that there are players that will answer that question, and you can move on extremely fast in the rankings.
Yeah, I certainly encourage everyone to take part in these novice games. It's a great opportunity for our new novice player community.
I actually had really good timing on a question down in our help and advice channel. Player Math was asking, he had been gone for a while, and it looks like his the games that he played are gone from the leaderboards and stuff, his stats. He was asking why that is, and it's actually a question we get pretty often, is that games that are reported, that you just finished and reported aren't reflected in your stats. So first part of that question, is that we reset the stats on October 1st when we switched to the Glico 2 system. So all the ELO games are gone. And then games that are just finished and added to ranked reporting, we give a 24-hour or 48-hour period before we enter those into the database to allow for any corrections to be made to those reports.
Just a small jump back to the coach theme. I definitely recommend going for a coach, guys. Although I'm one of the most inexperienced coaches in the league, I have to say that I learned a lot from other players. And I think that everyone can learn off of each other. Being in a competitive environment that's basically the point, learning from other people. And having people that you can ask all the time, I think that is very valuable. So use it when you can.
Oh, it seems that Big Friends Loki is writing something. Oh, that's one of the things that maybe we can also announce on this in this show. We have a new clan, and it's called Big Friends. It's made up of ex-members from San Z, I believe. Harambe was the founding father, along with Esteth. Well, now he's known as Morningstar, right? And I'm really looking for the next CCC and to see how they will match up against other clans.
Yeah, always good to have more clans here. Anyone else out there wants to form a clan up? All you need is a roster of 6 players, and then we'll make you.
And on that note, the hour is finished. So I hope we will see each other again next week and see how this goes. Any kind of feedback you have on this type of show is much appreciated. And since this is a work in progress, I hope you will be understandable of the little details that will have to be, corrected in the future. So just give me a shout out if you have something to say to me. I'm always up to answering any type of question. So we should wrap this up. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Good
Michael.
night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Mike.
Warburger.
It's been a pleasure. See you next time.